and I'm sitting ringside, and I'm like, wow, what the hell is going on here?
Tommy, if somebody messed with your kids, would you say to them, oh, I'm not throwing a punch today?
He's a mark for all the boys. There's no control.
I'm sorry. I love you.
The greatest 5 words in WrestleMania history.
And that's what they decided to do, and I just thought it was a mistake.
He makes it sound like it's a fun house there.
I heard this 10 times. Tommy Carlucci on line 1. Tommy Carlucci.
It could be the greatest match in WrestleMania history.
What's good, everybody? Welcome into yet another edition of your new favorite pro wrestling story time show we like to call Behind the Turnbuckle. Over 32 years, my man, Big Tommy C. I am the coach. Tommy, hello once again, sir.
How are you, sir? Another crazy week here in the WWE, and it's only a couple of days away from WrestleMania.
Yeah, depending on when you are watching this,
right.
We are taping it on Tuesday of WrestleMania week, and we're going to do a special countdown in this episode, Tommy. We're also going to talk about some of the bigger moments on Raw and SmackDown from the past week. But this was always, because I've been to 16 WrestleManias, and I know you've been a part of so many.
Yep.
Describe kind of the week, because when we got to Tuesday, we would go straight from, we go to SmackDown, because back in the day, it was SmackDown on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we would fly to the WrestleMania city, and we'd spend the entire week. I could not wait for WrestleMania week. What did that week mean to you?
Well, as you know, you have multiple jobs here at the WWE, and now in WrestleMania week, you're not just the floor manager for all the announcers. You're doing other projects, whatever. You got to do something for home video on a Thursday. You're going to do an interview in a hotel room with this guy. So you do multiple jobs, and you just can't wait for Sunday to come because you know that's the day. We're all psyched. We have the production meeting, and let's get this thing on. Now, it's crazy because the week is just so jam-packed with so many different things that has to happen to make everything go right. And we worked 12, 14-hour days. You know it, Coach. You were there.
I remember as a talent, I would see a lot of guys and ladies that I never saw the rest of the year. And all of a sudden, you had literally 300 people from what we call the office that would show up for WrestleMania weekend. And I would love some of them, but to be honest with you, Tommy, sometimes they would act like they own the place. They're like, oh, we're showing up for one day only. We're like, we're out here 52 weeks a year grinding for this. The other part of WrestleMania week that I didn't like, because I loved the week so much, we'd go out and party every single night, it seemed like, and then have to get up. And all the talent, so people know how it works, they literally get a sheet. It's probably an email now, I would imagine, of all of their appearances during the week. And how you rated how popular you were back then was how busy you were during WrestleMania week. And if you had something every single day, you were popular, huh, Tommy? But
that's right. Absolutely right. If you're a guy like Stone Cold, you're doing an interview for home video. You're doing something to promote a beer or whatever other product or whatever he needed to do. He had to do it, and he was probably one of the most busiest guys there. I remember from all those WrestleManias back in the day. So.
And I used to remember the kind of the mid-level talent to the lower talent. They would do like the Cricket Wireless meet and greet, on 34th Street, and you'd be like, oh, maybe I'm not as popular as I thought I was going to be. But you did what they asked you to do, because that's part of being a WWE superstar.
That's
all right, Tommy, before we get to our top 5 greatest moments or matches from WrestleMania, remember, they're our lists. They don't have to be like an all-timer. They're our list because they mean something to us. There are 3 different things I want to hit on, because what this show is, for somebody who's new, is we tell stories from our 45-plus years in the WWE, but also we look at what's going on now and try to tie it back. So the 3 things that caught my eye this week that I want your reaction to. First and foremost, I have loved, and we started the show during the Rock, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, all of that storyline a couple of months ago. This is only like episode 5 or 6. So we've had to talk about this every single week. For the first time, I felt like we had Overkill. For the first time, I thought we just saw Cody Rhodes get beaten down in Chicago. Blood everywhere. Slammed into his own bus. And then you're going to do it again inside the ring by the same guys, add the greatest of all time. I didn't understand the thought process between doing a Cody beatdown again.
I don't understand it either, Coach. and they whipped him like a dog. I mean, and they were, I'm telling you, man, those shots were stiff. And I
Mm-hmm.
get it. You want to make the difference between a heel and a baby face? Well, you did it again. But it was just sometimes it's just too much. Like from last Monday, it would have been fine. But this Monday, doing that, it just made no sense. And the way they end the show, that Cody's down one more time. So I didn't get the process there a little bit.
The whole point for people who are watching, Tommy, to understand what this business is all about. It's about creating the biggest heel.
Right.
What you're talking about at this time in WrestleMania, and creating the biggest baby face. So you have so much sympathy for him heading into the final mountain, climbing up the final mountain. That's what this story is. I got that last Monday. Yeah. And that would have been the last scene I needed to see in the package. Because remember, we work with all the greatest people who put together those packages, and the top 3 matches would get the packages. Right. And that one would have been amazing. And the last shot of The Rock with the blood and all of that, that was enough for me. But you know what it's going to be now? The end of the match is going to be that. And to me, it takes away from all the blood that Cody had to spill a week ago. Now, that's interesting. It's interesting, and it's emotional.
And you notice he used Cody's weight belt. That if you notice that he took it off, it said the American Nightmare on it. So is that add an insult to the wound? I guess so. I thought it was a little much. I'd rather see the image from the last Monday and maybe not see Cody and say speculating what the hell's going to happen now. Like if we don't see it.
They're trying to sell merch too. They're trying to sell
absolutely.
Merch.
I get it.
And they're the best. They're the best at that product placement, the whole 9 yards, and then trying to make it mean something. And that's a lot of the reaction that I saw, because I refuse to read social media when it comes to reacting to Raw or SmackDown. It's always just, I like this guy, so it's positive. I hate this guy, so it's, and nothing's ever subjective. But to me, that was I'm not going to say massive mistake, because they're feeling this momentum. But that's the problem of 52 weeks a year, Tommy, is you have to come up with something. And I'm sure in the creative offices, they felt like, well, we got to come up with something tonight. We need to see all 4 guys in the ring at the same time. How do we do it?
Right.
And that's what they decided to do. And I just thought it was a mistake.
And then earlier in the show, Cole even mentioned, Cody's not here. He's not medically cleared. And all of a sudden, he's running in the ring. So that was a little discombobulation for me.
Right. If you want to say that he's off somewhere, okay. But the beatdown they put on him last week, you've got to make it reality-based. And in reality, if any of us would have taken that beatdown from The Rock, in reality, if we do show up, we're literally holding our ribs. You're taking every precaution you can just to get out to the ring. He came out with a little cut on his head and ran.
He ran.
And jumped in the ring and then started beating up The Rock like he was fresh as a daisy.
Right.
I just didn't agree with it. All right.
Neither did I.
2 other things, Tommy.
Yep.
Because I will give credit where credit is due. And I am not the biggest CM Punk fan. Don't even really hardly know. I'm just saying from a character perspective, what I've seen the last couple of years with whole AEW, that sort of thing. If people haven't seen his interview with Ariel Helwani, I encourage you to go find it. Because I thought it was the best interview I've seen with CM Punk. You can tell when somebody is telling the truth, Tommy, or if somebody is lying. He was telling the truth because he was calm, detailed, very, very, and he answered all of the questions. He hit from nothing. And I thought the interview was really, really good. And also, what he said about AEW coming out of that, I thought was really, really strong.
Yeah, he makes it sound like it's a fun house there. The guy doesn't want to make any money. He doesn't care. He's a mark for all the boys, and there's no control. No control at all. Hey, it takes CM Punk to tell him to talk to Jack Perry about something? Like, you're not in control of that? Would that ever happen here, Coach, back in the day, or even now?
Back in the day or now. I cannot imagine a scenario. And there's a lot of people over there that we worked with that I know fairly well. Jericho's still there. Edge and Christian are still there. Samoa Joe is still there. So I don't like just criticizing the company as a whole. Sometimes it's out of the talent's hands. And when you are a boss, I can't imagine a scenario, Tommy, where I walk into the building and I'm watching the boys come out of the production meeting where they just decided what was going to happen on the show tonight. Or
Right.
clearly the boys are writing their own promos.
Right.
And that is clear. Sasha Banks, oh my gosh. Whoever's writing her stuff should be fired yesterday. And if you don't give them good character development, if they're not strong enough to do it on their own, it's not the talent's fault.
No.
Now, if you're walking into an arena, Tommy, 3,000 people there, and they're trying to put on social media that they sold 80% of their tickets, but they only released 4,000, again,
Right.
false. It's just everything is bad about what's going on over there. And the fact that CM Punk went that far in that interview, it surprised me a little bit. Did it surprise you?
It surprised me a lot because I didn't think CM Punk would go there, and he's really getting into what AEW is really about, right? I mean, he's not about making money. I mean, who's not in it to make money? You're spending daddy's money because this is you love the business so much, so you need a novelty to run AEW, and you're not worried about selling out the arena on a Wednesday night. Are you kidding me? Come on.
I made the comparison, Tommy, on social media to that of Live Golf, because basically there's a lot of comparisons, and what I mean by that is this: Live Golf is funded by a thing called the PIF. Right, the PIF is going to make an investment in the PGA Tour as well, so they're just an entity with a lot of money, and they keep funding Live Golf to try to grow the game, but there's no return. It's not a business, because a business tries to make money back. That's
Right.
exactly what AEW is. You got a guy that's worth $9 billion. He gave $1 billion to his son and said, go play with this toy. And it was nice at first, but that toy, when it stops making money, I don't know any rich men or women or anybody for that matter who got rich by saying, hey, here's $1 billion. Don't worry about making any
Right.
money back.
Right.
Don't worry about that. That's how places go out of business. And that's what it feels like AEW is headed for if this continues to be the business model. And as we tape this, Tommy, they're in the middle of a bunch of layoffs. They laid off a bunch of talent on Monday night, so maybe he's listening a little bit over there.
Yep.
Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows?
And the other thing, he's making and I know Tony Schiavone really well. We've been friends for 20 years. Great guy. He's a low-key guy. Doesn't want to, but Tony's making him get involved in stuff. As you heard CM Punk, Tony Schiavone comes over and he goes, hey, Tony wants you to go talk to Jack Perry about why does CM Punk have to discipline Jack Perry? Why isn't it just Tony Khan? Hey, Jack, get in my office. This is what's going on. Excuse me. This is what's going on. And if you don't like it, get the hell out of here.
You
don't
can't
get
be
that.
a best friend. You can't be a
Right.
best friend.
No,
And
you
I
can't.
think he said that in the interview. Like you
Yeah.
got to be a boss or a friend. And
Right.
when you're dealing with major league egos and these type of stars that are used to making big money, perform in front of big audiences, they're not getting that. And Tommy, we've seen it. We were there when, and it has nothing to do with the end of WCW, but at the end, nobody was showing up. And
Nope.
it is almost impossible to get that fan base back.
That's
It's
right.
almost impossible.
That's right.
Now, as good, Tommy, as the CM Punk interview was on the Ariel Helwani show, and it was really good, there was another thing that happened there, and then they took it to Monday Night Raw that I thought was just bad. It was just bad. And it's the one thing in this business that regular people who are not pro wrestling fans, they like, oh, that stuff's just fake. I can tell it's fake. That shows me it's fake. Well, what they tried to do there shows me that it's fake. It was one of the worst fight scenes I've ever seen. And do you think there's going to be a stage manager that is going to be able to stop Becky Lynch from getting to Rhea Ripley if she really wanted to?
Right.
And then she brings
Right.
up her daughter and said, you're going to talk about my daughter? We'll settle this at WrestleMania. I believe that was the audio. Tommy, if somebody messed with your kids, would you say to them, I'm not throwing a punch today. Not today.
I'll see you next Tuesday on that.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I'm kicking your rear end right there. I'm in your face. You mention my daughters one more time, I'm gonna knock you out. Oh, I'll see you at WrestleMania? Come on. That was not produced very well. I don't know if that was off the cuff. I don't know if there was a WWE guy there, producer or not. If it was, bad. Really bad.
Bad.
And what they're doing is they're taking it out of the arena and she's doing this, podcast with Ariel, who's very good. Then the phone's ringing and she can't answer the phone. And then she finally, Ariel, he finally answers the phone. big setup, and then she's already, oh, I'm in front of the building now. Oh, come on up, and she comes in 2 seconds later. Come on,
She
guys.
was just on the show two episodes ago. So
Right.
why in the world would she be there again? Again, that's how we think, because you can't go through and be in this business if you're constantly going, well, this is fake, this is storyline. No, we're always thinking storyline because we love this. This is just like a soap opera or anything else. And if you're really thinking logically, that the whole thing from start to finish was just a bad deal. The fight scene was horrible, and then Tommy, they take it to the show, and you're going to do the same exact thing that got a lot of play on social media earlier in the day.
Yeah, like Rhea's gonna bust through 8 big security guards. I mean, are you serious, guys? This is what drives you crazy, because some of the stuff is really good. And going back to Ariel again, what was Becky, just driving around New York? Like, what was she doing?
That's what I don't even know where he tapes it, but I'm assuming it's New York because
Yeah, it is New York.
he gets a lot of people in studio, which is great.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're absolutely right, and it's hard for me to believe somebody at her level would. And sometimes you need to do it because you don't want to fight with the producers, or they go, well, that's what so and so said to do. And in the past, it was one guy, and we know who that is.
right.
But Tommy, sometimes you don't want to be a pain in the ass, but you can't do stuff like that.
No.
I mean, you just can't. Like you just can't. You got to say no. We got to be better, or we got to.
Does that make you want to watch the match even more, though?
No,
Does it make
not
you
at
want to
all.
say, I can't? No, not at all.
I
Nope,
understand
didn't
trying to
elevate
make
it.
it personal. If you're trying to make it personal, I get it. You see what
Yep.
Rock's doing with Cody and bringing the mothers into it. That's about as personal as you can get. They're bringing the
Yep.
kids into it. Okay?
Yep.
I'm good with it. But
Yep.
write better reactions to it. That's all.
Yep.
That's all.
Absolutely.
That's
I
all.
agree.
All right, so that is our reaction. The go home to WrestleMania is done. Friday they will have, I believe it's, have they already taped that SmackDown, or do they
No.
have it live? Is it live in Philadelphia?
It's live, and then right after that is the Hall of Fame in
That's
the same arena.
Oh my God, the Hall of Fame. How many years? I remember when they brought it back in New York, Tommy. I can't remember the which number of WrestleMania it was, but they brought it back, and I think it was Superstar Billy Graham, or one of those was the first person. He talked for 33 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the 13 people behind him were like, oh, if there's no time limit, we all can talk for 33 minutes and spend every last minute. Tommy, we didn't walk out of there until 1 a.m. It started at 7 p.m.
Yep.
1 a.m. we walked out of there.
No, that's no more, Coach. They're scripted a little, and they'll cut you off, man. They will take you out, because now I'm sure that's airing on Peacock. That's not on Fox at all. So that's airing on Peacock. Maybe to get stretched their time a little bit, but it's going to be right after SmackDown. And you know what's funny about that whole thing?
What's
we
that?
just found out last night that Rock's grandmother is going in as the woman's promoter. And how many different dichotomies of there are The Rock? Because he's a heel for WrestleMania. Now he's going to be the baby face. He's honoring his grandmother. Like, he's presenting her. Like,
he announced that on Tuesday, and they announced it on Monday. And clearly it makes a lot of sense. I've had my opinions on a Hall of Fame that doesn't have a building. I really feel like they should have a building for it. But to your point, Tommy, he also was at midfield on Saturday or Sunday at the launching of the UFL, which he's a part owner of now. That we've talked about it a little bit, but it's interesting that you bring that up, because The Rock is probably the one who has been the most open about storylines, characters, things of that nature, even leading up to at the Super Bowl. He was on the shows talking about the difference between The Rock and Dwayne Johnson. But this is when you're trying to make people pay or buy or be interested in WrestleMania, and all you see is this nasty Rock character that's doing the F-bombs and screaming the F-bombs, and then he's going to come out and, hey, grandmother. It's you really got to be in the know to go, wait a second, how am I supposed to feel about this?
Right.
But he's very much an actor and treats this business as an actor, but with passion, right?
Absolutely. Yep. You're absolutely correct. He knows how to turn it on and turn it off in a dime. Like, he did it in 1 week on SmackDown in Memphis. He was the biggest babyface in the world, right? And then he said something, and they were yelling, Rocky sucks the next minute. I'm like, holy Christmas. What?
It takes me back, Tommy, right before I started in 1999. And I remember going to and Rock was a big heel at that point. And I remember the crowd, you had, two guys on your right that are losing their minds. Then you got two guys on the left that are booing him, and then everybody else is conflicted. That, to me, is brilliant character development. But that's how I feel right now, is a lot of the crowd doesn't know. He comes out, and you got the new bolts of lightning, and I feel like we're at a peak. I feel like we're at a peak, right?
Yep.
I feel like we're at a peak.
Yep.
And what are the moments going to be? Last night, clearly, or Monday night, they're trying to make a WrestleMania moment. So, Tommy, I thought it would be fun this week to give you a little bit of homework, to give me a little bit of homework, and give our top 5 all-time moments, matches, WrestleManias. We'll be loose with the rules, and then describe said moment. And I think we have 10 pretty good ones. And remarkably, our list did not overlap at all. We didn't talk about it? Not at all.
Nope.
All right, so I want you to start with your number 5 all-time WrestleMania moment and or match. Go.
All right. So my number 5 is, and we're a storytelling show, and I'm tying this into Cody last week on Raw, getting all bloody. And number 5 was Brett versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13, which I think one of the first weeks we had the show, I talked about it because I was ringside for that. These guys went into business for themselves, and they beat the hell out of each other from pillar to post, and Austin drew major blood all over his face. And one of the finishing shots, he's got him in the sharpshooter, and you just see the blood pouring out of Austin's face. And I was thinking, well, that's what Rock held Cody's head up there, and you saw the blood coming out. So I was tying my number 5 into that. That was a hell of a match. And by the way, Stone Cold passed out, and that's how he lost the match. A great number 5. 2 great workers in the ring, going in business for himself a little bit. And I think you have that leniency when you're 2 great superstars like those guys. And I'm sitting ringside, and I'm like, wow, what the hell is going on here? So that was my number 5.
You earn credibility in moments like that allow you to have the confidence to go into business for yourself. It also feels like one of those situations where you apologize before you go out, because that happens a lot. When you know you're going to go out and you're on a big pay-per-view match, or now it's WrestleMania, it's on Peacock. Okay, I get it's not pay-per-view. But you know that you're going to bust somebody open, maybe the hard way is what we called it. Then that feels like one of those moments where you go aside, you say, listen, man, nothing personal. We got to lay it in out there tonight. This is what we've built up to for 2 months. Let's lay it all in. And that's what you do. And that's what you get out of it. So I like your number 5, Tommy. I like your number 5. The Crimson Mask, as JR used to say. All right, my number 5 is kind of a combo, Tommy. And again, this is a list that means something to us, right? So my number 5 is, I'm going back to 2008. I'm going back to the WrestleMania that one of the top storylines was Ric Flair's gonna retire. And he's going to have one of the great wrestling matches of all time against Shawn Michaels, and he did. He did. And I'll get back to that in a second. But during the day, Tommy, we know how big the company was, and Vince at the time, about bringing in certain celebrities to give it the added touch, the celebrity touch. And part of that WrestleMania, Tommy, was Kim Kardashian and Snoop Dogg. And I tease my daughter all the time because my daughter was in the belly of my now ex-wife. And they actually took them into his trailer with all the smoke going on.
Oh, my God.
And every time that she has a moment, I go, you know what? I think this is Snoop Dogg's fault. Because she actually met Snoop Dogg before I ever did, and she was in the belly of my ex-wife. And so I'll take that, and then I'm sitting at ringside, and out comes Kim Kardashian. And, Tommy, I don't know how hard it is for you to remember 5 numbers, but I'll never forget, like, the shrillest voice. And all she had to do was announce the attendance. That's it.
Yep.
25 grand we paid her to show up. 25 large. And she remember she had that card. 68,287.
Yep.
A new Citrus Bowl record.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my God, 25 grand for this?
Yep.
And then back to the third part of this, Ric Flair. And I think it's one of the coolest moments. And you talk about how talented our camera guys are, Tommy. You got the face of Shawn Michaels. He says, I'm sorry. I love you. Super kick. Game over.
One of the most famous 5 words in WrestleMania history, Coach.
It really is. I'm sorry. I love you.
Great
And
stuff.
Ric Flair has many times regretted having to continue to wrestle, but he has very expensive tastes, as
Yep.
he's alluded to,
Yep.
and he wishes that was the last moment. He's coming back many, many times since then.
Yep.
But that moment, I remember sitting there going, "Damn, that is poetry in motion," right, Tommy?
Yeah, you were commentating there, right?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah, I
last
was
one.
right. I was there. I
Yeah,
was sitting right next to you. I think it was you and Cole. I don't know if King was there, and I can't remember.
I can't
But
remember either.
it was a phenomenal moment. It was one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. Anytime you got Shawn in a match, come on, guys, really?
Hmm.
And Flair is Flair. But the shot that was all set up, man, the greatest 5 words in WrestleMania history. I'm sorry, I love you. Oh my God, how to end this match? Incredible.
If you ever wonder, if you're sitting at home, how important planning out matches are, go back to that match,
That's right.
because they had to have the camera guy right there. They had to make
Yep.
Sean had to make sure he was in the right corner. Rick
Yep.
had to make sure he was in the right corner. Everything had to match up. Oh, by the way, 40 minutes into it, I might
Yep.
add, they had to remember all that.
And
Incredible
Sean doesn't
stuff.
know whether the camera's on him or not, so he's just selling away. He's doing his
Selling
thing,
away.
what he's supposed to do. If Kevin Dunn's not ready for that and this guys ain't ready, well, then we're going to miss a big part of that. So
I cannot
that,
imagine them
that's the
missing that
money for
shot.
the whole match right
That's the
there.
money. All right. All right, let's get to our number 4, Tommy. What's your number 4 top WrestleMania
All right.
moment
So,
of all time?
like I said, we're into storytelling, right, Coach? Number
Yep.
4 for me is Kofi Daniel Bryant, WrestleMania 35. And the reason why I picked this match is because what's going on right now? Huh? Cody is scratching and clawing
Mm-hmm.
to finish the story. And he's getting hit with every major bump by The Rock, Roman Reigns, bleeding, puddle, whipped, everything. Well, that was the same thing that was happening with Kofi. If you remember, the chairman didn't want him at WrestleMania. This is one of the first
Mm-hmm.
times ever, Coach, that the WWE Universe kind of predicted they wanted that main event of Kofi and Daniel Bryant. And he had to go through hell. He had to do a gauntlet match, and then he finishes the gauntlet match, and he wins at SmackDown. And then the chairman comes out and he says, well, next week, if the New Day tag team wins the tag team, they beat these guys, you get to go to WrestleMania. So I'm marrying Kofi and Cody together here because it was at WrestleMania 35, MetLife Stadium. It was a great match, and it ended up being that Kofi wins the match. And I'm tying those two together because we're going to see at WrestleMania if Cody has a Kofi moment. So
Well,
we'll see.
I think you just confused yourself right there.
Yeah, I did.
Kofi has a Cody
Kofi.
moment.
But do you remember that match? Do you remember
Yeah.
any of that?
I mean,
Yeah.
it was, and the thing that, that Kofi's always been about is that WrestleMania moment or that Royal Rumble moment, all those types of things when you're talking about those guys. And I think the guys are understanding that when you have one of those magical moments, then you can be talked about for years to come. The guys love to talk about legacy. And they have made a legacy, whether it's at the Royal Rumble or leading up to WrestleMania. So I
Yep.
like that.
But the other thing,
My
one other thing is that
Yep.
Daniel Bryan called him a B-level guy. The same thing with the chairman. So it was a great time to be at MetLife when he finally won the title.
In the shadows of New York City.
Yep.
My number 4 is kind of a combination, but I love it that Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, and I'll even give credit to Ronda Rousey because she was a part of that whole 3-year period where the women really got elevated, and they became a part of the first main event match ever in the history of WrestleMania. Now, I will say this. Becky Lynch has had a book come out recently, and she was not very kind to Ronda Rousey about her debut and how it happened and all of that. But what you can't take away from Ronda Rousey is the eyeballs that she brought to the WWE that then allowed for the next several years for the women to be elevated to a main event status. And I'll be honest, Tommy, being there from 99 through 08, I don't know that I ever thought that we would have stars, female stars, at the level that you could put them in a main
That's
event
right.
match. But they
You're
did
right.
it. They
Yep.
did it, right?
Yep. They
And
sure did.
That's big time. That's led to matches in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of things. Yes, are we behind the times in a lot of things? Diversity, no doubt. Females, no doubt. But you got to start somewhere, and I felt
Yep.
like they really started. What do you remember about when that announcement came out that they were truly going to get that?
I was wondering if they could pull it off. I mean, I knew Charlotte was good. I knew Ronda was okay and Becky and all them, but I was wondering if the fans were going to love it, and they ended up loving it at
Mm-hmm.
MetLife Stadium. And by the way, that was the show that made WrestleMania go to 2 days because that show was 5 hours and 20 minutes, Coach.
That I was back for that.
5:20.
I was back for that one.
Yep.
I had left ESPN and then I came back
Yes.
for what was like 2 WrestleManias,
Yep.
and my role was not good. I didn't enjoy it.
Yep.
It was what it was. But I was there, and I remember they sent buses back to the hotel, and some people didn't get back to the hotel till after 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
They didn't even
Yep.
get to go to the party. There's a party
Yep.
every
Right.
Sunday night of WrestleMania. Some people
That's
didn't even
right.
make it.
Right. Right.
So it didn't
But
make
the
it.
crowd loved it. New
They
York
did.
would tell you if they didn't like it, and they loved it, and they put on some show.
They did. They did. And I hate to criticize Becky Lynch this week because we just did, but we got to be
Yep.
honest. But in this time, whatever she's making, whatever she's doing, her contract's coming up, they're going to have to pay her because she has revolutionized with Charlotte Flair that women's division, no doubt about it. All right, let's move on to number 3. All-time moment, Tommy, for you is what?
Number 3 is Undertaker Shawn, WrestleMania 25, Dallas, Texas, AT&T Stadium. I'm there, ringside. I'm watching this match. And the reason why I picked this match because it's probably one of the greatest matches ever. It could be the greatest match in WrestleMania history. That
Wow.
the show these guys put on, going back and forth, back and forth. When you think Shawn's got Undertaker, no, he kicks out. It was just a great match, and that's what I want to tie that into, which I hope we see this week, this Sunday on WrestleMania with Cody, Roman, Rock, whatever. I want to see a great match. This match was like over 25 minutes long, and it was incredible. And two great superstars. I mean, Taker and Shawn. How could you not love it, Coach?
That was at the time because I left in '08, which was Flair's retirement, and then you really felt like the end was coming. And Shawn Michaels, for people who don't remember, we thought in the late '90s he would never wrestle again. He had a
Right.
horrible back injury. They were
Yep.
paying him at the time big time money to be a brand ambassador because it was that important to what happened in the '90s, good and bad. And then all of a sudden his back gets better. He's
Yep.
wrestling, he did
Yep.
Cena 60 minutes. And that kind of led up, Tommy, to this particular match. And I think in Shawn Michaels' mind, he was like, I've retired Ric Flair, and now I have a chance to go against the greatest before my body falls apart. And that's what I remember from this particular time for Shawn Michaels. For Shawn Michaels. You're probably gonna disagree with my number 3.
Okay.
You're probably gonna think it should be higher. But for WrestleMania to be what it is today, WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, with all of the different things that go into the weekend, it would not be what it is, in my opinion, unless we go back to WrestleMania 3. And that is, I was a child. I think it was 88, I believe was the year.
87.
87.
It was
87 was the
87.
year. 85 was 1, 86 was 2, 87 was 3. And I remember sitting around one time backstage, and we were discussing that. And I remember this story, and it was and a Brooklyn Brawler told us the story too. Shout out to the Brawler.
Yeah, brawler.
That the big storyline was 90,000 plus, right, Tommy? And it
Yep.
was, the Silverdome was a football stadium. And is Hulk Hogan going to be able to body slam Andre the Giant? And apparently, according to several, Andre was a ribber. He loved to joke around. And until basically right before they went out for that match, he did not tell Hogan if he was going to allow him to body slam him in the match.
Right.
And if that would have happened, the course of history, Tommy, would be different. How many times have we seen that happen? And we've
Yep.
seen that video, and we've heard the sounds, Gorilla Monsoon. It's all magic. But if
Yep.
he didn't allow him, so to me, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, over 90,000 in attendance. That's my number 3 moment of all time.
You know, a quick story about that is that was in 87. I started at WWE in January 11th, 1988. The money they made off of WrestleMania 3 bought the TV studio.
Really?
Yes.
On
The money
Hamilton
they made
Avenue.
off of that was enabled the chairman to buy a building in Stanford and facilitate it with all this TV production. And as you know, you've been in that building a million times.
A million times.
WWE got nothing but top of the line equipment all the time. And that's the story. With that WrestleMania and the merchandise and everything else, that bought 120 Hamilton Avenue.
It is so funny when you talk to people who are like, they're so, man, I've been by the WWE headquarters, and they always describe Exit 9 and the glass building, which, by the way, they've moved now. If you're going to go into Stanford, they're downtown in a big new building. Yep. But I always laugh when people go, yeah, I've been there. I've been right by it. I'm like, you haven't been by the TV studio? Oh, yes, no. I have. The TV studio is in a house, like you live very close. Away. 2 minutes away. It's in like a housing neighborhood.
Yep.
It really is.
Fenced in. It's all fenced in. You can't get in. Tight security. It's a building you would even never know that there's TV production going on there.
And all the biggest stars have been there, and the fans don't even know it. Like, literally, they could be a block away from The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Undertaker. They all used to go there all the time. And
quick note, Bill Parcells did his audition here. Remember when he quit the Giants and he went into broadcasting? Yes. Ebersol was here, and you knew Ebersol was close to Vince. And I got to work it because Larry Rosen, who I know, audio guy, he knew I was a huge Giant fan. I mic'd up Bill Parcells. And he auditioned.
I never knew that.
Yep.
He auditioned for the XFL?
He auditioned for the NFL.
Oh, at our studios.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Look at that.
Yep.
You never know what you're going to get here on Behind the Turnbuckle. He is Tommy C. I am the coach. We're down to our final two WrestleMania moments of all time. Tommy, your number 2 is what?
My number 2 is, and again, it's the storytelling and angles and everything, is Cena Rock 1 in Miami, Florida. And the reason why I picked that match is because they did an angle for a year, Coach. 1 year. How many matches have you known have been promoted as the main event of WrestleMania the next night, that Monday Night Raw after 27, Rock challenges Cena, and they do their storyline for 1 year. Now, the way they did it, and they're doing it like that now, is you don't see Rock every week. You don't see Roman every week. The constant is Cody and Seth. Well, you didn't see Rock every week on TV, but there was a message. There was a vignette. There was something always keeping Rock relevant when he needed to show up at Raw because his schedule, as his schedule was needed and stuff like that for him. But Cena Rock, Miami, great match. Great match. They had respect for it, and there was a little heat, as you know. It got a little ugly there, and I think they had to have a little talking to kind of be professional about everything, if you remember that.
Yeah,
that's my number 2.
From what I understand, Tommy, the egos did kind of, and we've seen Cena talk about it more than Rock talk about it over the years. I think it rubs some people the wrong way in that a lot of talent superstars, they value that WrestleMania spot. Now, where I don't agree with certain superstars, they go, "I've worked all year to get that spot." Have you? And when you announce a year in advance that, clearly that's a main event spot that they're going to take, it can be a little debilitating, a little defeating. If you're another superstar, you're like, well, even if I work this hard, I'm still not going to get that spot.
That's right.
And I think that was some of the takeaway from that, but you can't dispute how good those two fights or matches were.
Absolutely.
They were really, really good. Really good.
Yep.
Plus, outdoors, Miami, football stadium, it was a whole vibe. It was a whole vibe.
Yep.
So I don't disagree with that one, Tommy.
Yep.
I don't disagree with it. Now, my number 2 is a match that would lead to other great matches in this genre. And it was all about the laying out of the entrances and how great these two guys were. And I'm going back to WrestleMania 10, Tommy. I'm going to go ladder match. Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. And is it ironic that Shawn Michaels is showing up in a lot of different conversations, a lot of different matches when it comes to the biggest show of the year? That's because when the red light was on, Tommy, you didn't have to tell Shawn Michaels to be ready.
That's right.
He was always ready. That's why he was the Heartbreak Kid. That's why he had multiple names, and he could work with The Undertaker, the big of the big, Razor Ramon, the big of the big, or a Ric Flair who wasn't undersized, but certainly wasn't those two guys. Shawn Michaels, my number 2 with Razor Ramon.
Great match. I was there. I wasn't ringside for that one. I was backstage for that one, but it was incredible match. Razor worked his butt off. Sean could work with anybody. I mean, he could work with me and make me look like $1,000,000. And that's going to be hard to do, by the way. But unbelievable, great match. Yeah, that's a great number 2, Coach. I like that one.
Thank you very much. Sean was a lot like Ric Flair, and I think I've told the story here on the show already. When we were in Afghanistan one time, and Rick was like, "Let's just call it out there." I'm like, and I literally said to him, "Rick, I'm not Shawn Michaels. I can't just call it out there." That's a true story. He was like, "I'll just call it out there." That's how good Sean was. He could call a 60-minute match, wouldn't even blink. All right, the time has arrived. Tommy Carlucci, of all the moments, of all the WrestleManias, which there have been 39 to this point, for you, what's your number 1 moment?
Coach, my number 1 moment is, what if this happens this Sunday at WrestleMania? And you know what that is? Brock versus Taker. Who thought 21-0? Who thought Brock was going to beat Taker in the Superdome back in the day, huh? Nobody. So what if Roman wins on Sunday? Huh? It's a great question. And that's why I picked my number 1, because it shocked the world, Coach. 21 guys, superstars, try to beat that man. And that match was a battle. I was there for that. That match was pillar to post. I mean, he pounded Taker, and Taker came right back at him. But when the 1, 2, 3 happened, the best part of that whole show was crowd reaction, Michael Cole laying out, and just letting you feel what just happened, that Undertaker just lost the streak and Brock won. What could happen Sunday if Roman wins? Is it going to be the same reaction?
You mean if Cody wins?
No, I'm saying if Roman wins.
If Roman wins.
Yeah. Because a lot of people think Cody's going to finish his story. I mean, no matter all the battles he's going through, a lot of people think he's going to win on Sunday. But what if it didn't happen? Everybody thought Taker was going to win at WrestleMania, I'm sure. Nobody thought Brock was going to go over. And that's why I kind of tied it in. But it was my favorite moment, because it changed everything for Undertaker. And by the way, he was so beat up, he collapsed when he got to the gorilla position. I remember that.
I'll never forget. And what was the stadium that was in? Wasn't that
Superdome?
Superdome.
Yep. Mercedes-Benz.
There were a lot of ones from like 18 to 21 that he had to take shots in his hip, from what I remember. I was there, I think, when he went up against Roman. He had to take it. I don't want to throw that out without making sure I get the right ones. But the bottom line is his body was so beat up. For him to be able to go out there and be able to go with the likes of a Brock Lesnar was incredible. And, Tommy, the fact that – and this shows how great The Undertaker was – is that he knew that to make it believable, he had to allow Brock to beat him down.
Yep.
Because that's in real life, Brock would beat anybody down that wasn't a UFC fighter. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so Undertaker knew, I've got to make it look believable.
Yep.
And even me at 21-0, even me, I wouldn't match up physically that long with a Brock Lesnar. So
and that's what Taker wanted. Taker wanted a superhuman guy to beat him. He could have picked anybody, but he picked Brock. So that was my number 1 moment, Coach, and I'm tying it into, again, WrestleMania coming up, that if everybody's expecting Cody to win, what if it doesn't happen?
It's gonna be fascinating what they decide to do. And I guarantee you that right now the decision has not been made. I think they're still going back and forth, because you got to think about the future. You got to think about SummerSlam. Rock's going to be gone for 3 months. I think he's enjoying this run too. I think he wants to do more. I think he really likes it. So my number 1, Tommy, I was actually a part of, and it involves The Rock, and it involves WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, Canada.
Oh.
And this was the meeting of the mega giants. It was The Rock. It was Hulk Hogan. This thing was so big, Tommy, that in the hotel, at the TV hotel that we have for every WrestleMania, the company will rent out the entire hotel. And that's where families come and stay, and they set up a ring inside a ballroom at the hotel. They worked on this thing for a week straight.
Wow.
To have it just the right way. The Rock was going to be the babyface. Hulk Hogan was going to be the heel. Or so they thought.
Right.
But I get the rundown, Tommy, and they say, Coach, you're going to be with The Rock prior to the match. And I'm basically going to make fun of Hulk Hogan with his say your prayers, eat your vitamins, all that kind of stuff. And so Rock makes me get down on my knees and say a prayer, just like Hulk Hogan would have done. And I'll never forget where I get down on my knees and I look up and I go, "What up, G?" Like, to God. And Rock was like, "What up, G? What up, G? What is wrong with you?" And he just proceeded to just verbally undress me. You know what I mean? And you could hear the crowd and they're loving it. And then, of course, he gets rid of me and he goes one-on-one. And Tommy, when I look back at that hour of TV, just the fact that I was in it for just a couple of minutes. And it was one of the only times that I've ever gone out to the arena floor to watch a match live. Because whenever we do that, we get yelled at and people say, "Oh, there's so-and-so." But to watch that match, then people have never seen it, go back. Watch it. And for 10 minutes, Tommy, they stood there and it looked like they were talking trash. They were changing the match because there's certain things you can do as a baby face you cannot do as a heel and vice versa.
Right.
One of those would be punch you in the face. Baby faces, if you watch a match, they never punch in the face. That's just one example.
Right. Yep.
And so, Tommy, Rock changed the entire match that they'd been working on for a week to allow Hogan to be the baby face. He would be the heel. They tore the house down. And the two people I feel the worst for was Triple H and Chris Jericho because they insisted, at least Triple H did, on having the World Heavyweight title always be the end of the show. And they decided they were going to start that at WrestleMania. And so they had to go on after that match, and I'll never forget, it was like, it was the worst thing. People are streaming out, and it had nothing to do with them. It was they were emotionally exhausted from Hogan and Rock and waiting an entire lifetime. And, Tommy, that's my number one moment of all time.
That's a great moment, Coach. The fans dictated the finish.
Yes, they did.
Right? Am I right
100%.
or wrong?
Well, they dictated how the match would go.
I'm sorry.
I don't think they changed the finish, but
you're right. You're right.
They could have, but the entire match was relayed out by The Rock. And when people see him doing that, they think he's talking trash. He was not. He was changing the match, which is next level. That is next level.
Half the guys can't do that, Coach.
Oh, half?
More than half.
Probably 90%.
Right.
Because they're not in the moment. They see that red light and they see the camera right in their face like, "Oh, shit, what do I do now?"
Yeah.
Instead of, "Hey, this is my home. This is what I'm here for." And I felt like I got to that point in the ring for myself to where I knew what my character was. I knew what they wanted. I knew how to talk, all that. And when you get to that point, and those guys were way above my level, it's a great feeling, Tommy. And also to know that you're going to get like a little nice $1 million bonus thrown into your check because of that performance.
Not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad at all. And The Rock was a part of so many main events. But, Tommy, it wasn't like he was here for a long time. We think he was. He was only here for about 6 or 7 years. And a lot of his main events he's come back for. Do you think ultimately, Tommy, that rubs some of the talent the wrong way, that they lose out on a big payday and The Rock can just drop in whenever he wants?
There could be a little jealousy, Coach, but he elevates the product so much when he does come back. It elevates you, too, in the same manner of the company making money, merchandise, or whatever. So I'm sure there's some people don't like it, some superstars that don't like it. But for most of the part, when he comes back, as you see this patch run, last night, Monday Night Raw was the largest gate ever for Raw. Why is that? You tell me.
I know exactly why it is. And you also they may have changed it, but I'm just telling you, we're telling you how the payouts used to happen. And when I started getting in the ring, I would get basically 2 checks. I would get one for announcing, and then I'd get one for being in the ring and going to house shows and that sort of thing. So when you have an advertised house like Monday night in Brooklyn, and you're talking whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars, there's a talent pool. And they put, let's say, $100,000, to use a number, into that talent pool. And then they pay the talent out as a bonus for that show. So it trickles down to everybody at least a little bit. I'm sure they do it in some semblance like that still, Tommy.
Yep. Yep. Great number one. I like that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that is something I talk about moments all the time, and the show's all about story time. But those are certain things, Tommy, that whether it was you being there or whether it was me being there, that even though I don't have a ton of pictures, I don't have a lot on the walls, but those memories nobody can take away from you and I. And that's what I love the most.
That's right. Absolutely. We were in the right place at the right time.
We were. So, final thoughts before we get out of here, and I want everybody to enjoy the 2 nights of WrestleMania. Next week, we'll have a full recap. After Mania, we're going to start lining up interviews and guests. The Hurricane has already agreed to come on, so we're going to see which week we book him. But we'll add an interview to the show every single week now that they're kind of starting the new year over. They're not quite as busy as WrestleMania. But, Tommy, when you think of WrestleMania and you think of what everybody's going to go through this week, what's your kind of biggest takeaway from what this week always meant to you?
Being an employee, working that show, working that week, you get satisfaction that you were a part of it. Now, people there, all the production are going to be part of potentially the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You're there working. Whether you're a cameraman, whether you're makeup, whether you're lighting, whether you're audio, you're part of it. You're not a superstar, but you're part of it, and people appreciate what you do. So when you worked at WrestleMania, it was an honor. I happened to work it because I was on the road already. Usually the road crew, obviously you worked the pay-per-view. Happens to be the biggest show of the year. Yes. But I already made sure when it was WrestleMania, I was buttoned up, ringside, make sure everything was perfect for everybody. And after the show's over and you go to that party, you just said, I worked one of the greatest shows ever, WrestleMania. And that's the satisfaction you get out of it.
And I think that's the good and the bad that I remember about WrestleMania, because it's nothing
a lot
about
of work.
A lot of work. But the people who put in the work every single week, and again, I don't want to criticize those that came from the office, but a lot of the people that were at the party that I got to enjoy the entirety of the party were the office people. It wasn't the people working the show. That's that always disappointed me, because in the next day, now they've changed it a little bit, but the next day you had to travel to the next town. And then they started making they're gone. They're going back home. They got the hangovers and they got to enjoy the party. You're going to go do Monday Night Raw. That's your reward for a great WrestleMania. 24 hours later, and that part hurt. Literally, your head hurt and all of it hurt. Just the fact that they got to celebrate, and you're the ones at 52 weeks a year
that work it and go to Little Rock, Arkansas, as you know, Coach, in an ice storm while you eat a steak in a private plane. I remember that.
Did that ever happen? Oh, interesting. I also remember what also happened when I got back to the TV studio. I heard this 10 times. Tommy Carlucci on line 1. Tommy Carlucci on line 1. Can somebody pick that up, please? I'm like, are you kidding me? Yep. Anybody, Tommy, watching right now, if you got stuck in any city in America for 2 or 3 days on somebody else's dime, would you, A, call said TV studio 8,000 times, or B, would you drink all day, all night, play cards, do whatever? What would you do? And what did you do,
I made the phone call, because here's the problem. The hotel, the power went out. The power went out in the hotel.
You were planes, trains, and automobiles. Instead of staying in Arkansas, you got in a rental car. And you drove until you couldn't drive anymore. How far did you get, Tommy? Remember, tell the people at home, how far did you get?
The funny part is, it was me and Barry Bross, a promo guy. We got in the car. Screw this. We're going. We got to St. Louis, right? We get in the hotel. It's late. The friggin' fire alarm goes off. There's a fire in the friggin' hotel. I'm like, we're out of here.
What did that tell you?
Karma told me I should have stayed in Little Rock.
You should have stayed your ass in Little Rock. That's damn right. I'll never forget that story. Oh, my God. Tommy Carlucci on line 1.
And I'm happy to call my wife, because she does the travel for the road crew. I'm giving you some inside stuff. And she wouldn't even take the call. She wouldn't even want to talk to me. My own wife. Are you kidding me?
I can't blame her, Tommy. After 52 calls, I wouldn't have picked up either. After the 62nd call, I wouldn't have picked up either. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
you're burping up the steak dinner you had on the private plane. Yeah, okay. Great times though. You never trade that stuff in though, man.
That's right. That snow was heavy, Tommy. That was heavy
Oh yeah,
snow on
yeah.
us getting home that night.
Oh,
That was
I'm
heavy
sure.
snow. It was
Yeah,
heavy snow.
yeah,
It was. All right, everybody, I want you to enjoy WrestleMania. These are moments. These are shows. Remember, they're out there busting their ass for you. Let's keep it positive. We'll be back next week, just like we always are. We'll break down WrestleMania. We'll start to look ahead to what's going to happen, and then we always tie it back to a story from our time, part of 45 plus years in the WWE. Tommy, don't make any phone calls this week, okay?
Nope,
No phone calls. No phone calls.
nope, no phone calls.
All right.
I'm
But
done.
I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of texts. We do it all the time. That's what
Yep.
WrestleMania is all about. So for
Yep.
my man, Big Tommy C, and our producer man, always behind the scenes. You're damn right. You're damn right. Whether it's the fresh one or old school, we're always rocking with WrestleMania. I am the coach. We'll see you next week right here. Subscribe, like, share. There's only one behind the turnbuckle.